So in Luke chapter 14, Jesus says some pretty difficult things and some pretty challenging things. He says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his mother, brother, sister, wife, kids, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Those are some pretty heavy words. They're very difficult, I think, to receive at times. But after spending 2 hours in Trenton this morning, I realized that they are very, very true. So for the last 2 hours, I was in the park, and I walk the streets. You know, I come to Trenton a couple times a week, and I just try to meet with people and talk with people, you know, share with people, listen to people, and pray for people. I just try to do whatever I can do, you know. So I went to the park this morning. I saw a group of men sitting on a park bench, probably in their 60s, and they all, you know, had a beer inside their hands. So, you know, as I approached them, I knew one of them, and then I introduced myself, and, you know, I don't know, maybe I said a couple words, but after like 30 seconds, there was this one guy who had one eye, and he just broke down and started crying, and he just, you know, he was just weeping. So I thought it was maybe something I said, but apparently he was just really hurting, and he needed somebody just to listen to him and to cry with him. So I just sat on the park bench with him. You know, I put my hand on his shoulder, and I just listened. To him, you know, and then we prayed afterwards. But I think that the important thing was just listening to him. So after that, I got up and I walked into the other side of the park, and I met a man I knew, and, you know, I just sat down and talked. And he said, "Hey, Tony, man, guess what happened?" You know, I said, "What happened?" And he proceeded, man, to tell me about a woman who I know, who's a drug addict, who OD'd 2 weeks ago and died. And she's 47, and she leaves behind 2 kids. You know, as a matter of fact, there's a woman who our ministry tried to get, you know, help for. About 1.5 years ago, I tried to get her into a rehab, offered her to help, and she was not willing to. And now she's dead. So after that, I left. I went to the streets. I met another woman I knew in and out of homelessness, and she's a methadone addict, and she's got a few kids. She is in her 40s, and she's got a few kids and 6 grandkids, and she never sees them. You know, I think she was living in a shed for a few months. You know, and she was just sitting there talking to me, and I was just listening. And, you know, of course, I prayed, but you know, after listening to her, I just realized that she needed somebody there just to be there with her and just to be present. And if all I did was sit there and listen, then I think that was enough. Yeah. So after that encounter, I walked across the streets. I saw a couple gangbangers that I know. So I just went, you know, I sat by them. I gave them a few sodas and some chips, and we just talked about things, and we talked about the afterlife actually in a little bit. You know, we joked about the fact that in heaven that there are no hoods in heaven, you know, and it just seems like I think that the only way out in their own mind is if they sell drugs. It's the only way that they can make money for themselves. And but you know, I think the common thread inside of every conversation I had this morning was the lack of hope inside of everybody's eyes. There was just a sense of just hopelessness. It was like they're living in quicksand. and they feel like there's no way to be pulled up. And after all of those conversations, I thought about what Jesus said in Luke 14. If anybody doesn't hate his mother, brother, son, father, even his own life, he really cannot be my disciple. And if you find yourself in such a significant situation, if your issues in life are so bad and dark, and if you have, it feels like you're in quicksand, and I think that the only way out is this radical mentality of just completely letting it ride on Jesus. A complete and utter surrendering of your whole being to Him. This is, I think, what people need to hear now, probably more than ever. I mean, I don't have all of those problems and issues in my life. I mean, I have my issues and problems, like anybody else. But it's not that, grave in terms of addiction, homelessness, or whatever. So, and I know for me that if I want to walk the line, if I want to walk through the narrow gate, and that has to do with following Jesus. If I want to keep a straight line, then I need to radically yield my life to Jesus and completely surrender to His Lordship. So if I need to do that, then it would just make sense that those whose issues are much more significant would really need to do that. So I think that my encouragement for all of us is to not let anything or anybody hinder us from total and complete radical obedience to Jesus.